This is Professor Jahsun of Os Malandros de Mestre Toro, and I'm working for William Grant Still Center. So we're teaching capoeira. So this is week 2, and we're going to talk about some of the most incredible aspects of capoeira this week. So this week, as I said before, I wanted y'all to stay tuned because I wanted to talk about a particular mestre. So I'm going to be following up each week and talking about a particular mestre of capoeira, particularly coming from the style that I do, which is called Capoeira Angola Sabinto Grande. So this week I want to talk about the style, and then I'll talk about the mestre. So the style that I do is called Capoeira Angola Sabinto Grande, and it comes out of an area that is known as Rio or Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And Rio has a very unique history. We will get into more of that history as we continue on. But the founder, or excuse me, the first patriarch of the style was a mestre by the name of Mestre Campanhal. And Mestre Campanhal then teaches another mestre by the name of Mestre Quinzinho. So that's where we want to take our story up. Right there between after Mestre Quinzinho going into the next generation. So interestingly enough, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, what was happening is African people were manumitted from slavery. And when they were manumitted, I say they were manumitted because it wasn't freedom. They're manumitted, and when they were let go, there were no mechanisms like here or any other places where people had the opportunity to have Freedmen's Bureau or 40 acres and a mule. They just were let go. And when they were let out of slavery, these African people had to do something in order to make a livelihood. So much of what they did, some went back into a modified form of slavery, and others did what other people would consider to be crime. So in this respect, they formed groups. Maltas. Maltas is what many would call it. Malta is a gang. And these Maltas were like federations. And they controlled particular areas. So the type of capoeira that I do, as I said, is Capoeira Angola Sabinto Grande. And it is a type of martial art that came out of the African people who were manumitted from slavery, and then they started a gang or a federation of Malta. And the name of the Malta that this type of capoeira comes from is the Llamos. So this comes from the Llamos Malta. So Mestre Quinzinho, Mestre Campanhal, both of them were chiefs in the Llamos Malta. They were shot callers within these groups. And what ended up happening is Mestre Leopoldina, he's born in February 12th, 1933, around that time in Rio de Janeiro. And as he begins his growth, he then decides he is a youth, and he studies this art from Mestre Quinzinho. And Mestre Quinzinho is a famous and also a feared malandro. Some people like to call malandro a slum rascal, but we want to say that the malandro is a streetwise, very intelligent and creative individual. So when we talk about Mestre Leopoldina comes along and he learns the ways of being a malandro from Mestre Quinzinho. And as he does this, Mestre Quinzinho passes away. When Mestre Quinzinho dies, he had many enemies, individuals who wanted to do him in because of his prowess, his power, and influence. And as a result, Mestre Leopoldina, he goes underground. He removes himself from the situation because he didn't want to be involved in that. He then begins to study with Mestre Leopoldina, and in that process, he learns the style of what will later be known to be Carioca Capoeira, which is Capoeira out of Rio. And he studies this style, and in it, he becomes one of the greatest and most heralded masters of all time. He travels around the world, and as he does this, he's propagating this idea of capoeira. But along with doing that, Mestre Leopoldina he keeps his identity as a malandro, and he bonds with all the street people, the poor people, the underclass, the downtrodden, and everywhere that he goes, he bonds with those people. So as we look at Mestre Leopoldina and Mestre Campanhal, Mestre Quinzinho, all of those individuals epitomize the essence of the name of my capoeira group, known as Os Malandros de Mestre Toro. So malandro, with us, we don't see malandro as a bad thing. Being a malandro is a survivor. So I want all of us to think about ways that we can survive in most challenging situations, just as Mestre Leopoldina did, just as Mestre Quinzinho did, and Mestre Campanhal did. Because we as malandros, we are survivors. So this week we'll be talking about the movements of Queda de quatro, Martello, and chapa. We'll put all three of those movements together to form a great sentence. Thank you all, and see you next week. Tune in next week because we're going to be talking about another great mestre next week. All right, thank y'all.
This is the legendary Mestre Leopoldina, the legendary malandro, and his all white. As a capoeirista, it's important to dress like this and look this clean. So now we're going to work on the movement of Queda de quatro into rolê. We're putting that all together. Queda de quatro, rolê. Now martello. Queda de quatro, martello. Queda de quatro, martello. Queda de quatro, martello. We'll add the chapa shortly. So here's another angle. Always remember to tuck your head as you olé. Protect your cranium. Protect your chin. Put your chin to your chest. Very important. Queda de quatro into martello. Now, let's go into Queda de quatro, martello e chapa. Martello, chapa. Martello e chapa. Martello, chapa. Putting all these movements together, you'll understand that you're evading, you're escaping a movement with the Queda de quatro, and you're giving back with the martello and the chapa. Escape, give back. Escape and give back. Escape, martello e chapa. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Obrigado.